What if architecture could slow down time, turn stone into atmosphere, and make you feel the weight of silence pressing gently against your skin? Welcome back to UrbArchitect, where today we're descending into the depths of Therme Vals, a thermal bath carved into the Swiss Alps that has become something far more profound than a spa. It has become a pilgrimage site for architects, a meditation on materiality, and perhaps the most perfectly realized example of phenomenological architecture built in our lifetime. Nestled in the remote village of Vals in the Graubünden canton of Switzerland, designed by the Swiss architect Peter Zumthor and completed in 1996, this building doesn't announce itself with dramatic gestures or iconic silhouettes. Instead, it withdraws, it burrows into the mountainside, it whispers where others shout, and in that quiet restraint lies a power that has influenced an entire generation of architects who seek something deeper than novelty, something more lasting than spectacle, something that speaks to the essential question of what architecture can be when stripped of everything except stone, water, light, and the human body moving through space. This is not a building you photograph from a distance. This is a building you must enter, touch, inhabit, feel against your bare feet and fingertips, and that experiential intensity is precisely what makes it so important to study. So let's immerse ourselves in the mysteries of Therme Vals and discover what this extraordinary building can teach us about architecture, materiality, and the choreography of human experience. To understand Therme Vals, we must first understand the place and the moment from which it emerged, because this building is inseparable from its context, both geographical and cultural. Vals is a tiny village of barely 700 souls tucked into a narrow alpine valley, accessible by a single winding road that climbs through landscape so dramatic it feels almost mythological, peaks rising on all sides, the sound of water everywhere, cascading down mountainsides, rushing through stone channels carved over millennia, and the air itself different here, thinner, clearer, charged with that peculiar alpine quality of light that seems to emanate from the rocks themselves. The village has been known since Roman times for its thermal springs, hot mineral water rising from deep within the earth at a constant 30 degrees Celsius, and throughout the centuries, people have come here seeking the healing properties of these waters. But by the 1980s, the existing spa facilities were outdated, the village was economically struggling, and there was a question about whether Vals had a future at all in an era when young people were abandoning mountain villages for cities, and traditional tourism was declining. The mayor and village council made a bold decision. Instead of building a conventional tourist attraction, they would commission a world-class architect to create something extraordinary, something that would honor the village's heritage while pointing toward a new kind of cultural tourism based on quality, authenticity, and architectural experience. They approached Peter Zumthor, who at that time was still relatively unknown internationally, a local architect from nearby Haldenstein who had built a small but remarkable body of work characterized by intense material research, collaboration with skilled craftsmen, and an almost obsessive attention to atmosphere and detail. Zumthor accepted the commission in 1986, but he didn't begin construction until 1993, spending 7 years in research, design development, and deep contemplation of what this building should be, how it should sit in the landscape, what materials would be appropriate, how water and stone and light could be orchestrated to create not just a functional spa, but a spatial experience that would resonate with the primal human relationship to bathing, to mountains, to geological time. This patience, this refusal to rush, is already instructive for us as architects. In an era that demands instant results and rapid delivery, Zumthor was willing to wait, to refine, to let ideas mature like wine in a cellar, and that temporal investment is palpable in every surface of the finished building. The design concept is deceptively simple yet infinitely complex in its execution. Zumthor envisioned the thermal bath as a cave, a primitive shelter carved from living rock, but refined and abstracted into pure architectural form. The building is composed of 15 rectangular blocks of varying heights arranged in a loose grid pattern, each block containing a different bathing space, a hot pool, a cold plunge, a steam room, an outdoor bath, a drinking fountain, and the spaces between these blocks become the circulation paths, narrow stone corridors that wind and turn, compress and expand, revealing and concealing what lies ahead, creating a labyrinthine journey that disorients and reorients you, making it impossible to grasp the whole building at once, forcing you instead to experience it sequentially, intimately, one space at a time. The building is built directly into the slope, its grass-covered roof blending seamlessly with the alpine meadow above, so that from certain angles the structure almost disappears, becoming one with the mountainside. Only the horizontal slot of the entrance and the vertical opening of the outdoor bath reveal the presence of something constructed, something human-made, within this natural landscape. The material palette is radically reduced. Essentially, one material dominates everything: 60,000 slabs of local valser quartzite, a metamorphic stone quarry just 600 meters from the site, a stone with extraordinary properties. It's hard, dense, compressed over millions of years under tectonic pressure. Its color a subtle layering of grays, greens, and subtle gold tones that shift with moisture and light. Its surface can be left rough or polished smooth, and it has a particular quality when wet. It darkens, it glistens, it seems to absorb light and emit it simultaneously. Zumthor didn't just use this stone, he made it the protagonist of the entire architectural experience. Every surface you encounter is stone, walls are stone, floors are stone, benches are stone, ceilings are stone, even the bathing vessels themselves are lined with stone. But the stone is articulated in endlessly varied ways. Sometimes the slabs are laid horizontally in thin courses with open joints that allow light to filter through, creating these glowing walls that seem impossibly delicate. Despite their massive weight, sometimes the stone is cut into monolithic blocks, rough and primal. Sometimes it's polished to a reflective sheen. Sometimes it's left with the texture of the quarry saw. And this variation within unity creates a richness that never becomes monotonous. You're always aware that you're surrounded by stone, but the stone is always revealing new facets, new moods, new possibilities. The technical execution is where craft becomes art. Each stone slab measures approximately 1 meter by 1.5 meters and varies in thickness from 8 to 15 centimeters. They're individually numbered and positioned according to precise drawings. The horizontal joints are left open, just 1 centimeter gaps that allow light to penetrate from concealed sources behind, creating those luminous walls that seem to float despite their weight. This detail alone required extraordinary precision. The stones had to be cut and laid with millimeter accuracy to maintain consistent joints. And the lighting system behind the walls had to be carefully designed to distribute light evenly without creating hot spots or dark zones. The structural system is reinforced concrete, but you never see it. The concrete forms the bones of the building, massive walls and slabs that span the bathing pools and support the earth-covered roof. But every concrete surface is clad in stone. The structure disappears, only the stone remains visible, creating the illusion that the entire building is carved from a single geological mass. The building's integration with the thermal water source is equally sophisticated. The hot mineral water rises naturally from the spring, flows through a network of underground pipes, fills the various pools at different temperatures ranging from 14 degrees in the cold plunge to 42 degrees in the hot baths, and then flows out again in a continuous cycle. There are no chemicals, no chlorine, just pure thermal water that's constantly renewed, maintaining its mineral properties and that distinctive slightly sulfurous smell that reminds you this water comes from deep inside the earth, from darkness and heat and geological processes that dwarf human timescales. The spatial sequence is carefully choreographed. You enter at the lower level through a dim stone corridor. You change in simple wooden changing rooms that smell of larch. You pass through a low, compressed transition space, and then suddenly you emerge into the main bathing hall, and the compression releases into a soaring volume, light filtering through those horizontal stone joints, steam rising from dark pools, the sound of water echoing off stone surfaces, and that first moment of stepping into the warm water, feeling the stone smooth beneath your feet, seeing your body dissolve into darkness and steam. It's a sensory shock, a deliberate orchestration of contrast that makes the experience visceral, embodied, unforgettable. As you move through the building, each space offers a different atmospheric condition. The indoor bath is dark and cavernous, lit only by those glowing stone joints. The outdoor bath opens suddenly to the sky, a rectangular pool surrounded by towering stone walls that frame a perfect slice of mountain vista. The sound bath is a small dark room where you float in complete darkness listening to underwater music. The fire bath features an open flame visible through a glass wall. And the ice bath assaults you with cold so intense it takes your breath away. Each of these experiences is designed to heighten awareness of your body, your senses, your presence in space and time. This is architecture as a tool for consciousness, for awakening perception, for making you fully present in the moment. The atmosphere Zumthor creates is impossible to capture in photographs. It must be experienced. It's in the way light changes as clouds pass overhead, filtering down through those horizontal joints in ever-shifting patterns. It's in the temperature gradients as you move from hot to cold water. It's in the acoustic environment, sounds muffled by water and steam, echoing off stone in complex reverberations that make you hyper-aware of spatial volume. It's in the smell, stone and water and wood. And just a hint of sulfur, it's in the tactile sensations, rough stone against your palm, smooth stone beneath your feet, the silky density of thermal water on your skin. And it's in the temporal quality, time seems to slow down here, minutes stretch, thoughts quiet. You become aware of your breathing, your heartbeat, the simple animal pleasure of warmth and water and stone. This is what phenomenological architecture means. It's not about visual aesthetics or formal composition, though Therme Vals is certainly beautiful. It's about the total sensory experience, about engaging all the senses simultaneously to create what Zumthor calls atmosphere, that intangible quality that makes certain spaces memorable, moving, meaningful. And this atmospheric intensity is achieved through precise control of materials, light, proportion, acoustics, temperature, smell, texture. Everything working together to create a unified experiential field that affects you at a pre-intellectual, bodily level. For architects, there are profound lessons here about craft, patience, and the importance of material authenticity. Zumthor didn't use stone veneer or fake materials. He used massive, real local stone, honestly expressed, celebrating its weight, its texture, its geological origin, and that authenticity is palpable. You trust this building because nothing is faked, nothing is superficial. Every surface is exactly what it appears to be. This kind of honesty is increasingly rare in contemporary architecture, where budgets and schedules often push us toward cheaper, faster, more synthetic solutions. But Therme Vals reminds us that there's a quality achievable only through authentic materials, skilled craft, and patient refinement that no amount of digital sophistication or clever detailing can replicate. The building also teaches us about the power of reduction, about what happens when you take away rather than add, when you limit your palette to the essential, when you resist the temptation to include every possible feature or effect. Zumthor's architecture is subtractive. He removes everything unnecessary until only the essential remains, and paradoxically, this reduction creates richness because when there are fewer elements, each element becomes more important, more charged with meaning, more available for deep perception. The stone becomes more than stone. It becomes light, shadow, texture, temperature, history, place, all simultaneously. There's also something here about slowness as an architectural value. In a culture obsessed with speed, efficiency, and constant stimulation, Therme Vals proposes an alternative. It asks you to slow down, to move deliberately through space, to pause, to float, to contemplate, to do nothing, and this slowness is built into the architecture itself. The narrow corridors prevent rushing, the layout prevents shortcuts, the warm water encourages lingering, the darkness requires your eyes to adjust. Everything about the building resists the accelerated tempo of contemporary life and proposes instead a different relationship to time, a more meditative, embodied, present relationship. And this is radical. This is architecture as resistance to the dominant cultural logic of our era. Since its completion, Therme Vals has become one of the most influential buildings of the late 20th century. Not through generating formal imitators. You can't really copy this building because it's so specific to its site, its materials, its cultural context, but through demonstrating an approach to architecture that prioritizes atmosphere, experience, and material authenticity over iconic form or conceptual cleverness. It has inspired countless architects to think more deeply about sensory experience, to take materials seriously, to value craft, to resist the pressure toward surface effects and instant gratification. You can see its influence in contemporary architecture's renewed interest in materiality, in tactility, in the atmospheric qualities of space, in the growing recognition that architecture's power lies not just in what it looks like but in how it makes you feel. The building has also raised important questions about architecture and exclusivity, because let's be honest, Therme Vals is expensive to visit, it's remote, it's not easily accessible to everyone, and this tension between creating architecture of the highest quality and maintaining democratic accessibility is real and unresolved. Zumthor has been criticized for creating architecture that serves an elite audience, that prioritizes aesthetic experience over social function. And while there's validity to this critique, there's also an argument that buildings like Therme Vals have value precisely because they refuse to compromise, because they demonstrate what's possible when architecture is allowed to pursue perfection without the usual constraints. They become standards against which other work can be measured. They prove that certain qualities, depth, atmosphere, material authenticity, are achievable and worth pursuing, even if they can't be replicated in every project or made universally accessible. In conclusion, Therme Vals stands as one of the most profound architectural achievements of our time, a building that reminds us why we became architects in the first place. Because architecture at its best isn't just about solving functional problems or creating impressive forms, it's about shaping human experience, creating spaces that touch us emotionally, physically, spiritually, spaces that heighten our awareness of being alive, of inhabiting a body, of existing in a particular place at a particular moment, spaces that connect us to something larger than ourselves, whether you call that nature, history, materiality, or simply the mystery of existence itself. Peter Zumthor's masterpiece teaches us that architecture doesn't need to shout to be powerful, that reduction can be richer than addition, that authentic materials honestly used create effects impossible to achieve through synthetic means, that slowness has value in a fast world, that darkness can be as beautiful as light, that atmosphere matters as much as form, and that the patient pursuit of perfection, the willingness to spend years refining an idea, collaborating with skilled craftspeople, testing materials, adjusting proportions, considering every detail, is not a luxury but a necessity if we want to create architecture that endures, that matters, that transforms how people experience space and themselves within it. As architects and students, we should study Therme Vals not to copy its forms or imitate its effects, but to understand its methods, its values, its unwavering commitment to experiential depth over surface effects, and to ask ourselves how we can bring that same intensity of attention, that same material authenticity, that same atmospheric ambition to our own work, regardless of budget, program, or site, because what Zumthor demonstrates is that these qualities aren't dependent on unlimited resources, they're dependent on patience, care, knowledge, and an uncompromising belief that architecture can and should be more than background, more than container, more than image. It can be an experience that stays with you, that changes you, that reminds you what it means to be fully present in space and time. And that is the essence of architecture. That is what we should all be striving for, and that is why, almost 30 years after its completion, Therme Vals remains essential, not just as a beautiful building, but as a reminder of what architecture can be when we refuse to settle for anything less than profound.